Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, we're going to do a very quick market update on what happened last month in Vancouver real estate. We're going to talk about something that a developer is doing to bring a ton of new inventory to the market this year. And I'm also going to touch on a video I did a couple weeks back on rent control. Real quick before we get started, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. I also make content designed to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to talk with me one-on-one, you can book me in the Calendly link below. But regardless, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, so let's take a very quick look at the stats and what's happening in Vancouver real estate from a feet on the street market perspective. Last month, if we look at the greater Vancouver area, sales were down based on comparing to last year, about 16.5%. Again, we're talking about sales quantity. I always like to distinguish on this channel, the difference between sales being down, prices being down, how headlines like to grasp on to the sales number because it tends to have a larger fluctuation. So sales down about 16% year over year. If we look at the Fraser Valley, sales down not so significantly, down 5% year over year from a quantity perspective. Now, from a pricing perspective, here's where things get interesting, and this is what I think is more useful to you as the viewer and of course myself. If you look at the chart I'm going to place right here, you'll see that the median sale price for both Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley is trending upwards. If you look at the Metro Vancouver or the Greater Vancouver number, which is in green on this chart, you're going to see that we're getting pretty close to the peak pricing of last year. Peak pricing for all property types, median sale price just under $1 million. Right now we're sitting at $970,000. So we're about 2.5–3% off of that peak price. And as you can see, this year, prices have been heading upwards. In the Fraser Valley, we're much further away from that peak pricing. Makes sense because at the first part of last year, there was a lot of money being put into Fraser Valley real estate, driving up prices very significantly. Whereas on the Greater Vancouver side, things have been more steady Eddie, more consistent, less ups and downs than we've seen in the Fraser Valley over the last couple years. Now here's where things get interesting, because when we look at the 10-year average, and we'll take Greater Vancouver an example, we're down sales quantity wise again about 15.5% off of the 10-year average. Now when we line that up with inventory, inventory is down almost 21% over that 10-year average. So that's why we have to take the headlines we read, we have to take all of the data that we're consuming and actually derive what the data is trying to tell us. Because if sales are down from the 10-year average about 15% and inventory is down about 20%, and keeping in mind that this sales activity data is actually not touching on pre-sale data at all. Pre-sale units are not included in this metric. So if we factor that in as well, it's conceivable to derive that we are actually in a busier, hotter market, if you will, than we were at last year at this time. Definitely a more active market. Now, as real estate agents, what we look at when it comes to figuring out how active a market is sell-through rate or sales active ratio. Sales active ratio essentially looks at how many units are selling versus how many available pieces of inventory there are on the market. And you can see Fraser Valley, Greater Vancouver hovering around the high 30s to 40% mark. Townhomes in Greater Vancouver are at 40%. Anything above 20% is considered a seller's market. And actually, if you look at this chart here, you'll see very few instances where we actually dip below that 20% mark. So, Vancouver real estate long term, typically, we are usually in a seller's market. You can tell on this chart there was a bit of a buying opportunity at the end of last year. That would have been the balance in the market. And now again, we're trending upwards. Now, from a sale price perspective, I'm going to jump back to it. The Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver was expecting that sales would be up about 1 or 2% this year. This year, we are already up 5%. Now, anything can happen for the rest of the year. We could have prices go down. We could have a large chunk of inventory hit the market, which I'm going to talk about in a second here. But everything is indicating that, we're going to see prices keep going up or perhaps steady out. In my opinion, I think they're going to continue to inch upwards because I don't think the additional inventory is going to be enough to shake up the market. And I'm expecting the Bank of Canada to remain pat on the interest rate. All right, so big news on the inventory front, like I mentioned off the top of the video. Shape Properties, the developers that's developing City of Lougheed, 37-acre community, over 20 towers right at North Road and Lougheed Highway. They are bringing to market 262 ready-to-go units, not pre-sale units, in July of this year. So they have pre-sold Tower 1, Tower 2, and they made a decision some time ago with Tower 3 that they were going to do something that developers don't typically do, really don't ever do, is they're not going to do any pre-sales. They're going to wait until the building is complete, and they're going to sell these units as finished product. Now, the reason that you don't see this happen for developers, number one, is probably obvious. They want to pre-sale, so they have a commitment on these units, and they have some funds coming in that they can use towards the project. They know it's a viable project when they are pre-selling. And number two is the lenders often have a minimum threshold that they need the developer to sell before they will give them the financing commitment. Whether that's 60% of units, 65% of units, the developer needs to meet that commitment in pre-sale to be able to move forward with the project. So what that tells us about Shape Properties here, obviously very innovative developer, doing things that other developers are not doing. Obviously a well-capitalized developer as well. They clearly are in a good position financially to be able to do this, and they have a good relationship with their lender, who's obviously going to be doing the financing on it as well. They're probably bringing a stronger equity position to it as the developer and pre-selling Towers 1, Towers 2, it put them in a position to do this. So 262 homes coming in July, ready to go condo units. Put this in perspective, in that area today for condo units, active units, there's about 100 to 120 units active and available today. So they're literally bringing double the amount of inventory that we see today. So if you are a buyer and you're shopping around for new inventory, something brand new you can move into with warranty, you don't want to go the pre-sale route, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. If you want me to keep an eye on it for you, reach out to me. I own a unit right across the street, so I'm very big on this area. So keep an eye on this. I'll be keeping an eye on it as well. It'll be interesting to see how they do the sales. Are they going to stagger the inventory? They're going to stagger the release. They're competing essentially with themselves because, again, they're going to hold so much of that inventory. Now, if you are a seller, if you have a unit in this area, a condo unit that you've been considering selling, now is your time to do it. You need to do it before this product hits because, again, this developer is going to set the market pricing. There's going to be a lot of units coming to the market. If you're a tenant and you're watching this video and you might be looking for a new opportunity, I think once these units do sell, a lot of these are going to be used for investment and to be rented out. So this is good news for everyone. For me, I'm very gung-ho on this area. It's about a 12-minute SkyTrain to Brentwood, which I'm also a big fan of. Obviously, a lot of development happening in this area, so keep an eye on it. I will be keeping an eye on it, and I will update on this channel in the future as well. All right, so I mentioned off the top, I'm going to talk very quickly about a video I did on rent control a couple of weeks back. I'm going to link to it here. Once you're done watching this video, I highly suggest that you watch this video because a couple of weeks ago I said that this is the next housing crisis. What's happening in the market essentially is investor-held units are being sold because investors aren't able to raise rents enough to keep up with the rise in cost. So they're not able to raise, and they say, you know what, what's the point in holding on to this unit, especially if they've had a tenant in there for several years that's paying such a significantly below market rent. So what they're doing is they are just selling the unit, and usually it's a consumer, someone who's going to move into it, buys that unit, the tenant gets noticed, now the tenant gets displaced. The tenant gets displaced, and not only that, they're having to find a new place, but they're also realizing how much more they're going to have to pay for this new place. And I was mentioning how I'm starting to see it creep up, happening a lot with investor-held units. This article right here came out a couple days ago, basically suggesting that this is now starting to happen en masse. Long story short, a Surrey landlord basically sent notices to tenants in a specific building and said, look, we can either mutually agree to an increase in your rental rate above and beyond the 2% that the provincial government allows us to do. We can either agree to that, or I'm just going to sell the unit and very likely someone else is going to buy it and move in. And so we're going to see a lot more of this happen because, over the last decade or so, municipalities have not done enough to create enough affordable housing, affordable rental housing for people. And unfortunately, now the burden is being placed on, the small mom and pop investor to provide affordable rental housing to the market. Never a plan that would work. We needed municipalities to step up and foresee that we were going to need this affordable housing. In my opinion, unfairly, now that burden gets placed on the investor, gets placed on, again, that small mom and pop landlord who literally is just trying to make ends meet. So even a landlord sending notices out like this, they are probably feeling the pinch. They're probably underwater on that unit once they factor in their expenses. And so it doesn't make sense for them to hold on to it. But, they're giving the tenant the opportunity to pay more and the landlord won't sell. So optically, this can look pretty bad. But again, rent control is the cause of this. If we're able to raise rents appropriately, then this sort of stuff won't happen. So this is an issue today, like I mentioned a couple weeks back. This is going to become an even bigger issue moving forward. I'm going to be watching very closely how much landlords are going to be able to raise rents next year, because I think this decision should come in July or August. It's significant. It's larger than many people think. We need to see a more of a sizable increase that's more appropriately aligned with inflation, because that's how it was done before. Used to be aligned with inflation. It no longer is, and now we're going to see a lot of instances in this sort of way. And I mentioned in the previous video, there's instances of tenants coming to the landlord proactively saying, hey, I notice you're selling, I want to stay. How much would I have to pay to stay? So this is landlords and tenants, they're taking it into their own hands to figure it out. I'll wrap it up right here, but I do recommend you watch that video of a couple weeks back. Guys, I hope you learned something in this video. If you did and you enjoyed it, if you could hit the like button, what that does is it takes this video and it sends it out to more people so they can enjoy and learn from it as well. If you like this sort of real estate content, I make videos weekly, so subscribe to this channel and you don't miss a future video. And again, like I said off the top, if you're in the Vancouver area and you want to talk about your own specific real estate situation, I would love to talk to you one-on-one. So again, you can book me in the Calendly link below. Send me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever's easiest for you. But once again, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video.